Tom, you got to show up there, you know. Well, it took me until a year before last uh, to finally work it out in my schedule. And as you can tell, I am hooked. It's a wonderful place to be. So tell us how long you've been active in that, and maybe some of your thoughts on the early fests as compared to the this last fest here in this past March, George.
Well, I have been to all of the fest except for the first one. The first one was at the Fiesta Motor Inn with the famous Pancho Villa room, and I was not at that one, but I was at all of the ones that were held in Coltsville. And although I must say several of us went over to the Fiesta Motor Hotel before they tore it down, and we had a beer over there. I remember that very well. There's maybe 40 DXers sitting in this bar, and we're just about the only customers they have in the whole place. It's empty other than us. And we sat there, and we sat there, and we sat there, and the waitress wouldn't come over. And we're starting to say, what's going on here? And I remember I was sitting next to Bob Brown, and he turned to me and he says, doesn't she know who we are? And but I've had so many experiences at the fest. But let me work this in here right now. Let me sneak an item from my Monitoring Times column that's probably going to be on the newsstands this week, I think. There's a group of anarchists that have been running an FM pirate station at large demonstrations lately. At the World Trade Organization demonstrations, you may recall, in Seattle several months ago.
Uh-huh.
And then they had a similar thing when the World Bank, I think it was, met in Washington about 2 months ago. And wherever these big demonstrations go, this group lugs an FM transmitter with them and puts an FM pirate on the air. And it's my understanding that they have plans to target the Republican and the Democratic conventions, which are immediately forthcoming here. And why did I bring this into the conversation? The Republican convention is going to be in Philadelphia. So if we have some people in the area of the fest there, you might have an advance tip that it's highly likely there's going to be an FM pirate on the air in Philadelphia. So there's something to check out if you're in that section of the country. But the fest, there's been so many things there. One item that I remember a couple of times, I think Jonathan Marks has been there from Radio Netherlands. I remember one of the times he was there, they had a little newspaper bin there in the lobby of the hotel. And there's a gigantic headline on the top of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Some guy named Marks had just had a big trial. And on top of the top of the front page of the Philadelphia newspaper, it says, Marks indicted on 12 charges. So I reached in there, bought a copy, and gave it to Jonathan. I'm sure he took it back to Netherlands with him.
Oh, that's funny. That's a good one.
One of the key attractions for some people at the fest is that there's a bottomless keg of Molson's that's there, and it's a good thing it's bottomless because it gets plenty of use.
Yes, it does. In the hospitality room, tuning oil is very important. Yeah, yes, it is.
But I can recall lots of highlights of the fest. And they're not really inside jokes because everybody who comes to the fest becomes inside. It's the most. I go to a lot of conferences in my business. I was just in one in Dayton last week. But the fest of all the places I ever go is the one that everybody bends over backwards to make everybody feel at home and sit around and just have a good time. Whereas other places are a little stiff or stodgy, and that's certainly no description of the fest, that's for sure.
Oh, that's for sure. I'll tell you a story. At this last fest, this past March, I was going up to the hotel room in between forms or whatever, and I had my little name tag on, and I always write my ham call sign on there. So I got in the elevator with a gentleman, and he says, he was not involved with the fest at all. He was there on business, much as you do as you go to Dayton or something. And he says, "Oh, are you a ham radio operator?" I says, "Oh, yeah, I am." And so he introduced himself to me, and I did likewise. And I told him that, we are having a convention here, and we hold this every year. And so he was there on business, totally unrelated to the fest. But he is a ham operator and a shortwave listener. He's been a shortwave listener. His name is John Stevens or something. I'm not sure. But he did give me his card, and he sent me email. And so he said, he just noticing some of the folks up and down the halls and how friendly everyone was. And he says he's going to try and make it next year. So we are in contact via email. So maybe we'll pull one more in next year, George.
Well, that's great. You mentioned the goggles before. I have to say something about that.
Yes.
One of the features of the fest each year is there's a silent auction where people bring all kinds of miscellaneous radio-related things. People bid on them by writing their price down on a sheet of paper. And at the end of the auction, whoever has the high bid walks off with the item, and the money is all donated to a charity that's run by Father John, the DX priest, and so that's a lot of fun. But this year, Marie Lamb, who many people will know from DXing with Cumbre, had in her family a couple of the weirdest things I ever saw. They are goggles that look like those goggles that guy wears on Star Trek who's blind, and inside the goggles...
Oh, you're being modest, George. They look better.
Inside the goggles is a vibrator, so when you turn it on, the whole thing shakes, and it's marketed as a face massager or something, and nobody would bid on this. This was just one of those goofy items that you see in the Fest silent auction. Well, I walked by there and wrote $1 down on the paper, and when the auction was over, there it was. The winner of the vibrating goggles is George Zeller. So I had to ask her. Marie had an explanation where she would come up with such a goofy thing, but she had them laying around the house, and so now they're in my possession. So after that, I had to walk around the fest wearing them, and I remember walking up to Andy Yoder's wife and saying, "Look, I have X-ray vision now," and she was a little nonplussed, actually.
There was rumor going around there that they were X-ray vision glasses, and that you were trying to get down deep and read the code that's in Mark Fine's excellent database software to to crack it. Is there any truth to that rumor?
No, but it makes the serial numbers easier to write down.
Oh, yes. I remember you walking up to receive some of your your prizes and stuff. What is that thing? Fill us in. It's like every year, just about. Every year that I've been there, there's this, and they'll draw tickets. And what's this special bag or something? And it seems like you always seem to win this thing.
Well, Sam Bardo is, of course, a name that is very famous in the shortwave field. He's been writing the QSL column in NASA for about the last 150 years, I think. And he also was a very big force behind the handicapped aid program, which tried to assist disabled DXers. And it was a very excellent thing. But Sam had a reputation for always trying to sell stuff. And when you'd go to his room at any conference, at the Fest or the old Anarch conventions and so forth, he always had a room full of stuff he was trying to sell. One year at the Fest, they had a bunch of crap laying around that I think was going to go into a dumpster otherwise, and they decided as a joke to say this was the Bardo bag and put it into the Fest auction, and I never won anything in the Fest auction, and I jokingly complained about it a couple of times, and so they gave me this worthless Bardo bag, and it became a standard joke. So now in the middle of the auction, it's amazing how my ticket comes up every year. It's astonishing. The odds have got to be a zillion to one against it.
Well, your house there must be getting pretty full of them Bardo bags. Can you give us any clue as to maybe what's inside of those, or maybe you don't want to get into that?
Well, it's mostly junk, although sometimes it's funny things. I think there was a picture of Pancho Villa in there one year. The people who haven't been to the Fest don't understand the reference to Pancho Villa. The pink and purple room from that first lousy hotel they had the Fest in spawned the legend of Pancho Villa in his pink and purple room. There actually was a murder that took place out in the parking lot of that hotel while the convention was going on. Fortunately, no DXer was involved, but But in any event, this led to Pancho Villa producing his own pirate station, the voice of Pancho Villa. And there's some very clever production that goes into the work by Pancho there, and it's an annual tradition at the fest at 12 midnight local time on the last day of the fest. The voice of Pancho Villa broadcast is always held. And so the fest programs are always pink and purple in honor of that room out front where the murder was, and it might not mean much to somebody who hasn't been through it, but Pancho is actually very clever. It's too bad Pancho doesn't have, maybe we ought to put the voice of Pancho Villa on this internet relay chat sometime.
Hola, Leo! I think we could probably get him, as an interviewee here. I don't think that would probably be too difficult to do, to get Pancho here, and maybe he can talk about that first fest.
Yes, Pancho's identity is not very secret. Most pirates try and retain an anonymity for obvious reasons. They don't want the FCC barking on their door, but Pancho doesn't actually transmit. He's a program producer.
I'm just looking at some of the comments that are going up here in Internet Relay Chat channel SWL right now. And I can't really get into all these things because some of them are not meant for broadcasting on the internet. But anyway,
what do you mean, Dave? Look at that stuff that's on the internet. Any imaginable low junk is on the internet. It's worse than Bardo bags.
Well, there you go. Or at least on the same level, huh? Okay, George, we're going to take another break, about a 5-minute break, 4-minute break, and we'll come back and close this up. And we got to do this again real soon because I don't think we've even scratched the surface here. So why don't we take about a 4-minute break? You may want to take a break. I know I need one. And we'll be back in about 4 minutes to put the cork in the bottle. How's that sound?
And then you can quit drinking the coffee, Dave.
Yes, as you know, Maxwell House. Okay, George, hang in there. We'll be right back for the closing here. It's 1641 Universal Coordinated Time, and today's Sunday, July the 23rd. In the year 2000. This is Cyber Shortwave Live. It's the world's first truly interactive radio monitors netcast. We've been doing this for almost a year. We're coming up on a year. August 31st will be 1 year, folks. Thank you for participating, and we've got those regular folks in there that are in there in Internet Relay Chat each and every week, and that's the place you can contribute information and just meet new folks in there. If you have suggestions or loggings, suggestions for world-type songs that we could play, because we could play music here on the internet, but we couldn't do that on the Anarch Shortwave Listeners Net, or loggings. I'm always interested in having your loggings and submissions, receiver reviews, and maybe you would like to be an interviewee. Maybe you'd like to talk to me, or just we'll have a little conversation. This is no formal interview. It's done live. This whole netcast here. The important thing is here when we started this is that I wanted it to be live. None of this slick record and cut and edit and all that. Whatever goes out, goes out. Just like when we sit around the oh, I hear a dog over there, George.
Oh, that's my computer, and I had to put my hand over the microphone.
Okay. You're listening, huh? Okay. I still have I could turn that down. But anyway, just like in the hospitality room at the Winter SWL Fest, when we sit around and we just talk and we have a good time. So anyway, and George was mentioning the voice of Pancho Villa. Well, I don't have the recording. I do have it somewhere around here. But in memory of the voice of Pancho Villa, let's have a song by Hoyt Axton.
Viva Villa, viva Pancho Villa. Viva Villa, viva Pancho Villa. Ooh, in an old cantina down in Mexico, bunch of dreamers drinking